Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and today a little bit different because this one is with a twist. So I already know this person, but obviously you'll find out more as we get into it. So I would like to welcome to the show today, Marcus.
Thank you.
How are you, pal? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I think probably overdue this one, to be fair.
Listen, long overdue. It's been a long one. So as people can see, you got the On the Verge t-shirt on.
Of course.
So again, we'll go into the realms of this. So, you know what the first question is.
Yeah, I think I'm prepared for it, to be fair.
Well, you should be, because you've seen about eight of the podcast so far, and you're part of it. So I don't know why you wouldn't know what it is. So, my first question to you is, as always, who are you?
Well, I think answering that question, me and you have had little brief discussions about that question in the past anyway, as kind of podcasts have gone on. And I think kind of what we or the decision or the outcome we came to of that question is, I think that answer to that question changes every time or every couple of years, depending on what position, situations you've been through in your own life. I think that would then alter the way you answer that question. So for me, at this moment in my life, I would say, first and foremost, I'm a father. Secondly, I'm founder and director of On the Verge. And I would then just say somebody that's kind of still putting pieces towards my life together. So at the moment, I'd say my priorities would be father, On the Verge, and that's kind of overall conclusion about who I am at this moment in time.
Yeah, listen, completely agree. Because again, if somebody asked you in a year down the line, then obviously that could, like, the bit of being a father is not going to change, the bit of On the Verge is not going to change, but then there's other elements that come into it where you often change.
Other things that have come in, some things that will take away, especially if you're talking, again, going back a few years than where we are now. There's a lot of elements that have changed within my life in itself. So yeah, like at that moment, I'd say they're my two primary focuses at this moment in time, definitely.
Okay. So you will know more than anybody that this podcast is not about glamorizing anything. No. So although there will be elements where you may have committed a criminal offence or you may have been to prison, it's not something that we're going to actually cover. It might be a loose conversation that goes over. So, let's go back in time.
Okay.
So, going back in time, we're going to go for earliest memories until the end of primary school, so until you was 11.
Okay, so first and foremost, I grew up in two-parent household, so mum and dad both present for my early upbringings. I'm one of 5 siblings. I've got two elder sisters. I've got an elder brother and I've got a younger brother. A bit, it's like we kind of came in twos in a sense, because like my eldest sister, she's 12 years older than me, whereas my oldest brother's 10 years older than me, and then my other eldest sister, she's 2 years technically, but then 1 year if you go in school years, and then my younger brother's 5 years younger than me, so kind of we all grew up together, same household.
Yeah, but when you're talking pairs, your little brother didn't have no money.
Yeah. So he kind of, I think that was the end one, to be fair. I think that he probably came as a bit of a surprise, but yeah, he was the one that would kind of grew up on his lonesome, where obviously my elder siblings, we all kind of had someone. Like my elder sister, she had my older brother, I had my older sister, and then kind of we came up in pairs together. Early childhood memories, I think for me, if we're talking education wise, first things I really remember, my fond memories would be, I got diagnosed with dyslexia at an early age, which is obviously a learning difficulty when it came to somewhat reading and writing. I used to have like a coloured overlay from time to time. I'd say I had a bad habit of biting my fingernails. So if you know me from a young age, you know, especially early upbringings, my mum used to go for the fact of Vaseline, vinegar, anything that would get put on my fingers, but I'd still end up chewing through it. My mum would verify for that. So that's a habit I kind of broke out of later on in life, as I felt like fingernails were actually a big part of your appearance. My auntie told me that a few years ago, saying when you get older, you regret biting your fingers, because when you look at your fingers, it's actually a sign of like your appearance and your general outlook, how you come across to people. So that's a habit I've managed to break in my later years, but that's something I definitely somewhat used to have as a habit growing up, especially early teen wise. But then again, like I said, if talking education wise, primary school, earliest memories would be diagnosed with dyslexia, having that code overlay, having them difficulties. Even though I still had like a good support system, I used to go to one-on-one lessons and one-on-one support groups. I think that was somewhat the earliest things I can remember within that time period before secondary school anyway.
So, because a lot of people that have dyslexia, there's always a form of, not rebellion, but there's more of an outlay of maybe being disruptive, stuff like that. Because obviously it covers the dyslexia part, because, you know, it's like, we all know that when you're in primary school, you'll be in a class and they'll read, and then they pass it to the next person, read, next person read, next person read.
I don't think that disruptiveness for me came in until probably secondary school, because as you know, primary school, you kind of, when the year starts, you have that set teacher that follows you throughout the year, so you build that bit of rapport, build that bit of a relationship with that teacher, so you've kind of got that support constantly all year round. Whereas then in high school, I think that's when it kind of differed for me, as like, I'm a person now, as you will know, like, if I don't understand something, I'm happy to look stupid and ask the question and be like, well, I don't quite get that. Whereas say, secondary school, I wasn't that confident. I'd rather look stupid in other ways and act up and be disruptive, rather than act stupid by just asking the question and saying, yeah, I don't understand this.
That's interesting. Just to go back, so what colour was your overlay?
Red. I used to have a red colour overlay. I know what you're going to try to relate that to, but yeah, red.
No, I'm not going to relate it to anything. However, he's a Man United supporter. That's what I'll say. He's a Man U supporter.
Of course.
Enough said. Coming from a Leeds United lad. But anyway, let's not talk about football. So primary was quite free.
Yeah. I'd say again, as a kid that's in primary school, you don't have any cares for anything in a sense. Like, you kind of just enjoying everything, living in the moment, and everything's quite fun at that time, to be fair. So yeah, like say I struggle with my dyslexia from time to time in like just understanding, feeling like I might have been behind certain people in my own age group, but it was never a point where I'd sort of have, say, frequent disruptive outbursts or be kind of turn that misunderstanding to kind of being aggressive.
And you was always at school? No issues there?
Yeah, always at school, yeah.
So that was your local primary school?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go secondary. So obviously, when you're in primary, you are always with your, because you said there's 2 years between you, but there's only one school year.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because you're always going to be known as your sister's younger brother, aren't you? Because obviously, if you'd have been older, she'd have been known as your little sister.
It was that from nursery. So the nursery we went to, like my sister went to that nursery, so we was always kind of together.
Yeah. So when she was in reception, you was in nursery, and then she's year 2, you're year 1.
But
so
even I had cousins that was quite similar age to us as well, so they was kind of always in the nursery classes. But then again, when it came to primary school, it was always my sister was there a year above me. And then I was just basically transitioning straight after my sister.
And you're pretty lucky that she was actually, because I'm guessing your sister would have been good at school. So, all right, okay. We'll leave that one. Let's not divulge that. No guilt pushing on to it. Okay, so we're going to secondary school. So obviously, within your local area, you've gone to your primary school. And then obviously you've got, because as you'll know now, primaries have feeders. So your secondaries have feeder schools, don't you, which is your primary, which go there. So what was your secondary feeder school then?
A bit weird for me, because again, like the primary school I went to, it was Catholic primary school. So I necessarily went to then Catholic high school, but for me, it wasn't within the local area. So it wasn't somewhat what would be seen as a usual feeder school in a sense.
Oh, okay.
So like I went to, there was 2 local schools that actually where I lived that was closer to the school I actually went to. So I ended up traveling and going to All Saints, which is basically, I'm from like the Marsh area, Huddersfield, and All Saints is in like the Bradley area, so it's about probably like a 20-minute, half an hour bus journey every morning. So that was the high school that I went to.
What about your local school? How close was that for a walk? Say walking.
Well, literally, there's one from my mum's house is literally about 10-15 minutes. It's just down a hill, and then there's a second one which again would be probably about 20-25 minute walk. Yeah.
But instead you had to get a bus 20 minutes further away.
I had to walk home from my school one time because I was ill or I got sent home. I can't remember which one it was, but
let's go with ill.
Yeah, but because I used to get the bus passes, obviously, because we was on free school meals, so we used to get the free bus passes where we could travel to and from school. But you can only use it on one trip to school, one trip back from school. But you can only use that return trip after 12 o'clock. And because I think it was about 11 o'clock, I got sent home I was ill. I had to walk home. It took me about an hour and a half, nearly enough 2 hours to get back home from there.
Wow. Okay, so let's go secondary school, because you've already said that you changed. Your dyslexia was more not more effective, but it affected you more once you went into secondary school.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think because, like I said, it was more the constant change. Like you've got your form teacher that you see on a morning. So it used to be like form, then you go to class, but then it was that constant changing of classes, constant changing of people that you was around. So like year 7 wasn't too bad, if I'm honest, because year 7, throughout the whole year 7, you set with your form groups. Every class you have, it's with your form class, and obviously throughout the year you'll take little tests, and then when it comes to like year 8, that's when you'll be put in like sets. So it'll go from like top sets to bottom sets and things like that. And I feel like because of that, that's somewhat me not wanting to ask for help or not understanding the work, as I somewhat, maybe the other people in my class, I'd rather tend to be disruptive rather than ask for support. I'd rather look stupid being disruptive and getting sent out than look stupid by asking a question and trying to understand what the work's about, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. You find a lot of young people are doing similar things. So you're spending a lot of time. Is that more doing one-to-one work, or is that more time being in isolation?
I'd say more isolation, definitely isolation detentions than being one-to-one, because I feel like, again, school systems, I don't believe there was a way of kind of, it was somewhat one size fits all, in a sense, one way of learning. If you don't kind of learn that way, then you're gonna kind of struggle. And for me, I'm a person that I can't learn by just sitting in a classroom and getting taught to and being told like, oh, this is how you do things. I'm a hands-on person, in a sense, like you're gonna have to tell me, but at the same time show me as well. Saying once you show me, I can then take it and start doing it myself and get myself comfortable with it.
And I can verify that, because you're like that now.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, you're definitely like that now. You're definitely like that now. Okay, so secondary school, is this where you're changing?
Yeah, so again, like I said earlier, I grew up in a 2-parent household, so it came to a point, end of year 8, beginning of year 9, parents actually split up. So my dad moved out of the family home, but he only went to my grandma's, which wasn't actually that far from me, to be fair. It was probably about a 10-15 minute walk from my mum's house. So again, I kind of used that to my advantage, along with my dyslexia, by using that as my sort of leeway out of why I was acting out or why my behavior was how it was, in the sense of, I don't understand the work, but I'm not going to say I don't understand the work. I'm going to say, listen, my mum and dad have split up, so I'm going to play on that. I'm going to say my dyslexia, I don't understand it, so I'm going to play on that, rather than just kind of accept the fact that I don't understand what's going on. I don't want to make myself look stupid and ask for help, so I'll just play on these two things, and hopefully that'll get me by, that'll get me through it at the same time.
But hindsight's a wonderful thing, though, isn't it? Okay, so difficult times then?
Yeah, I wouldn't say difficult. I think, again, for me, it was more, I substituted that fact of not understanding with the somewhat disruption. And because I somewhat went to a school that was out of my local area, whenever I was going to school, I liked to go to school because it was fun. It was something to do, in a sense. Whereas somewhat when I came back home, it's not a sense of boredom, but I'm around more people. Like, I have a good social circle when I'm at school, so I tend to have more fun when I'm at school than when I'm at home, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you got 2 different circles, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you got your school, but then you got your local area. Yeah. Okay, I get that. And I'm guessing you've always been tall.
No, well, I don't know, to be fair. That's a good question. Like, I went through a phase where I was fat at one point. I gained quite a bit of weight. I was quite chunky, quite chubby at one point. And then within high school, I had a bit of a growth spurt. I think it was about year 10. And that's when I kind of had a growth spurt. And that kind of, like, instead of being fat, I was now slim.
Okay. So school, education, no issue. So you have no issues going to school because you like the school that you go to and you like that social. However, the education side of it is something that you couldn't, or you wasn't dealing with.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there were certain subjects I enjoyed in school. Like, I'm a person that I enjoyed football, so I used to play football from time to time. See, you're laughing now again, but you've lent me on the football level where I've been out of football for so however long. So we'll leave that laughing. You can have your giggle. But yeah, I was a person that used to play football. And again, that kind of helped me keep that relationship with my dad, because even when he moved out, he was the coach of a football team that I used to play for. So he'd always used to me and my little brother would go stay with him at my grandma's on a Friday, and then we'd stay there over the weekend. So we kind of had that bit of relationship still there, and then it kind of died out once I'd left high school in a sense, but we still had that bit of a relationship there. So I used to see him occasionally on the football, so I was still being regular contact with my dad. So that wasn't really too much of an issue at that time, if that makes sense. But then again, I'm ICT, as you know. I'm kind of a bit technical savvy. I like my computers, so I used to love ICT. I think that was a one thing away from obviously handwritten textbook working that kind of just allowed me that free range to kind of just do what I wanted to do with ICT. So there was little subjects that I enjoyed doing, but again, the vast majority of subjects I didn't enjoy, but I like school for the social environment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it was more social than educational. Okay, so GCSEs?
Yeah, I sat my GCSEs, but again, because of somewhat this dyslexia, my disturbance to then kind of wanted to learn, I did a lot of coursework subjects.
Okay.
So I did, the only GCSEs I actually sat was, obviously you do your English language, English literature. I think I passed my language, didn't pass my literature. Obviously we did maths exams. When it came to science, I did a BTEC science, so I didn't actually do any exams for science. Obviously I picked ICT as an option, so I passed my ICT. I did food technology as an option, which again is more coursework oriented because you're having to cook, etc. But there is a bit of theory behind it, but I did well in my food tech. I picked geography as an option, which didn't go down too well when it came to GCSE level, I'll be honest. Up till year 9, 7th year 9, I was good at geography. When it came to options years, don't know what happened, to be fair. Obviously Catholic school, we had to do RE, religious studies, religious education, so I had to do an exam for that. But overall, I walked out with 6 GCSEs, I think, so I actually did quite well.
That's good. So obviously the next step is college or sixth form.
No, college for me. So I went to, I think it was more college or apprenticeships were the options there. I didn't really, I think sixth form was a thing, but it wasn't as commonly heard about. It was more either going to college or you got an apprenticeship at them ages there. So I went to college. So now there was the local high school that was talking about. There's one local high school that's right next to a college. So I chose to go there for a year, and I did an ICT course, which wasn't bad, but because I'd done ICT in his school as a GCSE, I felt like that year doing that college course, doing ICT, it was basically a replica of what I'd already done in school.
Okay.
So I kind of got bored of that, and then I went to do a level 3 in BTEC sports at another college, which is Kirklees College, which is located in Huddersfield Town Centre. So I went there to do a level 3 in BTEC sports, where I played for the football team as well.
Oh, you played for their football team?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm not. I just want to say that I'm not doubting that back then you could play football. I'm not doubting that.
See how you stated back then. See right now. See, you're one of them motivators that drive me to want to get back into ball. But I know my legs. I don't have it, man. My legs don't have it.
Oh no, I know you don't have it. I've seen you play football now.
All right, let's move on. Let's keep it moving.
So you go to college, you go to one college where you're doing carrying on your ICT.
Yeah.
But then you go, nah, not for me. Then you want to get into sports. So then you change college. You go to another, and these both in your local area now. So you're not going far out.
Pretty much, yeah. Because like I said, so where my mum's is, it's basically in the middle of both colleges. So if I'm going to the town centre one, I'm going down town centre. If I'm going to the one up the road, I'm going up. So they're literally about 20 minutes either direction from where I'm located now. Then I also forgot to mention, from leaving high school, my sister, she had a job at Cedar Court Hotel, so she was a waiter there. So once I'd left high school, I now started to realise the importance of obviously money, and the factor in the fact that my mum's single parent of 5, she can't now buy me everything that I wanted to buy me, in a sense. Like, don't get me wrong, Christmas's birthday, she will do what she can to make sure I get what I want, in a sense, but in hindsight, I need to start taking responsibility, being in control of my own little finances, and kind of make some money for myself. So I got a job as a waiter at the same hotel my sister worked at, but I also had a habit now for smoking weed as well. So it's something I've done when I was in high school, but it became more frequently once I'd left high school and obviously started to venture into college life.
All right, okay. So you're just smoking cannabis.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of kids, a lot of young people at that age are doing that as well, aren't they? I mean, yeah, a lot of young people are doing it, if not younger. So we changed college.
Yeah.
We're now doing the BTEC sports.
Yeah.
So how does that go?
To be fair, enjoyed it, bro. Like I said, I had a joy for sports in it. So like with the football academy, I think they used to train like on a Monday, Tuesday, play games on a Wednesday, and then train on a Friday as well. So that was kind of keeping me entertained and kind of keeping me focused on the football aspect. And then from training and playing your matches, you then at college. But again, as we know, college regime's not like school. You're not there from 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock. Like you've got gaps where you might only be there in the afternoon, you might only be there in the morning. So that flexibility in terms of your timetable, that somewhat suited me because it wasn't always, I need to go into college at this time and I'm going to be here for this the whole day. It was like, all right, you've only got an hour today, you've only got 2 hours today. So that somewhat helped me in a sense because it provided me that flexibility to be able to go to college, but then still do what I wanted to do in the free time.
Yeah, because the responsibility is on yourself.
Yeah,
The responsibility is on you. It's giving you that flexibility. However, it's putting the main responsibility on yourself to do it.
Definitely.
So you finish the
yes. So this is where I did a year at New College that was doing the IT course, and then I did. Was it 3 years? I think I did 3 years all in all at Kirklees College. So now the first 2 years or the first year, smooth, no real issues. But again, because of this habit for smoking weed now, it's costing me more than I can afford because like I said, I got my part-time job, but the salary that's bringing me in on monthly, it's not even covering the amount of weed that I'm smoking per month. So now it's like, all right, how can I somewhat fund this habit of smoking weed and still have the money there I can do what I want with as well, where I can buy what I want. So while I'm around socializing with people that are also smoking weed, knowing of people that elsewhere in the outer circle are smoking weed, got into the habit of being able to sell weed in a sense. So I was selling weed at the same time as going to college, so that became more disruptive to my college work. So there was a point where I think it was the last year of college, my mum actually got called in for a meeting just due to my attendance being quite low. But then my counter argument was, well, in terms of my modules and my assignments, they're always in on time and I'm always passing them. So why do I then need to be at college? So it was kind of a counterfeit argument.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the road that I went down. But I did quite well. I think altogether, the completion of the college course, I got a double merit pass at the end of the sports course. So that was actually quite well. But then again, because of that habit to smoke weed, I'd been arrested prior. I think this was during the second year of college. I was arrested for possession of a blade article in the town centre, and that was obviously down to the fact that because of my decision to start selling cannabis, I then made the choice, start carrying a knife, as I felt that would be the safest way to protect what I have and what I'm selling. So then one day on my way to the town centre, I'm obviously stop and search, found in possession of my knife. I received a 6-month suspended sentence for that at that time, 6 months suspended for a year. Point I got my suspended sentence, I didn't really even understand what a suspended sentence meant, because a lot of the time you're doing a lot of things, but you don't understand the consequences that come behind it, or you don't understand the logistics of what you're actually getting yourself into. So that was pretty much the case with me. And then while on that suspended sentence, I was then arrested, possession with intent to supply Class B drugs, being the cannabis. So literally just as I finished my college course in the July, by the November that same year, I was sent to prison for the first time.
Wow. Okay. So go back. Obviously, the possession of and again, because we know that working with young kids, most young people will believe that carrying a weapon is to protect themselves.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of paranoia comes in there as well.
Yeah,
plus your social people. Plus you hear about what other things that's going on with other people and people getting
and you're
robbed.
smoking at the same time. So I'm naturally an overthinker.
Yeah.
So I overthink everything anyway. So the thought of me then overthinking the situation to be, all right, well, if I have this knife, I'm somewhat protecting myself, but in reality, I'm not protecting myself. If anything, I'm just making it more challenging, because if someone wants to come and take what's mine, they know I carry a knife, so inevitably they're gonna have to bring a knife towards me as well. So it's a double-edged sword.
You're putting yourself in more danger, right?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, so you go to prison for the first time. Okay, so then how long was that?
I got an 11-month sentence that was made up of 8 months for the possession of intent to supply Class B drugs, and then from my suspended sentence, she gave me 3 months off my 6-month suspended sentence, and I did that one as well. So in total, I got 11 months to 5.5 months.
Wow. Okay. Come back out of jail.
Yeah. But for me, I think for me, when I got out, there was no real, somewhat realization to think, all right, you've been to prison now, you kind of need to change your routes, change your avenue in a sense. It was more, I'm out now, I've experienced prison, and I don't want to do it again, but inevitably, if it comes,
It's like a badge of honor, though,
I
isn't it?
know I can. At them ages, yeah, I'd say so, definitely. I
It's like
think
a badge of honor because
a
you're
lot
going
of people
Wales.
look at it,
Yeah.
a lot of people look at it and say, well, it's something to put on your CV in a sense. Whereas if you look at the reality and the damage that it does to you in terms of future aspirations, criminal record, and things like that, you'll rethink that whole thought process, thinking, well, it's actually jeopardizing where I can be in my actual potential in the long run. Just have to sit through it now and say, all right, well, I've been to prison.
Wow. Okay. So, without going into more into the details of what it was, because you've explained it. So I'm guessing that you come out of jail, and because of the realization of what you've gone through, badge of honor. You then say not really a sense of fear, and that's what it is. So I'm guessing then we jump back into the same mode again.
Yeah, literally same, somewhat same, because again, so now, again, my sister, pivotal role for me, definitely, because essentially I did get back into somewhat the old hustle that I was involved in, but because my sister was still working, she was actually at another hotel this time. Again, naturally, I gravitated towards this hotel now, so she's managed to get me a job there. Initially, it was as a waiter again, but I just didn't want to do that no more. Whereas then a night port job opportunity came up at the same hotel. So I was like, you know what? I'll give this night port a day, because at the same time, I don't start work till 9 o'clock. So I've still got all day to do what I'm doing. And I'm 9 till 7. So again, I missed the night, but at the same time, I've had all day to kind of be able to do what I want to do in a sense. So it got to a point where I was doing that. I think it was like 2-3 times a week, and it was paid weekly. So it was substantial. It worked out all right for me, because I was able to balance that with this somewhat side hustle again. But again, it got to a point where I think I just didn't take it seriously enough, bro. I think I got sacked for allegedly smoking weed on the premises while during this night shift. So
Yeah, which was rightfully so. They're going to sack you out.
Of course.
Okay, so inevitably, most people always get caught. They get caught again. So I'm guessing you get caught again.
Yeah, so I went from obviously losing that night port job, it became to, all right, I'm outside 24/7 in a sense, and that became the focal point until, so this was 2017 I got out, and then inevitably ended up back in prison in 2020.
Okay.
Just before first lockdown, just before COVID hit.
So you end up getting arrested and going back in.
Well, I was arrested in 2019. No, 2000 and so 2018, 2019. No, end of 2018, start 2019. I was arrested, but then substantially didn't go to prison till 2020, as certain situations or certain incidents had happened, which have now left me in somewhat the position I am in now, in a sense.
Okay. So just for people that don't know, brief outline of what happened there.
April 2019, I was victim of serious stabbing, where I was stabbed over 20 times, which has now resulted in me being left with right arm impairment, meaning I've limited function in my right arm and my wrist. I got stabbed literally not just in my right arm, but my neck. I suffered a spine fracture through the stab wound that went through my neck. Got stabbed in my lung, one of my lungs collapsed, all like the right hand side of my body. And to be fair, I was lucky in a sense to be alive, like really lucky to be alive. And substantially I ended up being in a coma for 5 days. Once I then came round from that coma, I was in intensive care for another 5 days. So I spent like 10 days all in all in intensive care, and then just shy of a month or just over a month in hospital, just on the regular ward, just kind of basically regaining my strength, building myself a bit back up, having to relearn how to walk again, and literally just finding myself, which now obviously suffering with the right arm impairment, also suffer mentally, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I have real bad social anxiety when it comes to kind of buses, public transport, struggle with kind of being able to take myself and plan my own routes without, again, overthinking in my head. I'm an overthinker before, whereas now I'm even more of an overthinker.
Do you know what I think? Like, for anybody listening now, there'll be a part of people watching go, wow. But then I suppose there's another side of that which people don't usually think of, and that's like the effect on your family.
Oh,
'Cause I can imagine that. Obviously, I'm not saying that you've got everybody has favourite brothers and sisters, but obviously you've got your older sister that's looked out for you your whole life, basically, and then obviously your mother, and so I'm guessing it affects them.
Yeah,
them
it
somewhat,
did,
do you know what I
bro.
mean?
Like I said, like for me especially, it was like, again, it falls into why I do a lot of the work that we do now, which obviously we'll touch on a bit further down the line. But again, it's for me, it was like going through what I went through and being stabbed over 20 times. Like where I got stabbed, bro, it's literally the bottom of my mum's road. Like my mum walks past there to go to work all the time, bro. Like frequently has to visit that spot. So it's like, for me, I got stabbed there, but then the effects that had on her, like I was in a coma for 5 days. So for 5 days, they was all on edge, wondering, is he gonna survive? Is he not gonna survive? Like for me, that tears me apart, bro, because I can only imagine what my mum was actually going through and what she was experiencing. Like I had a conversation with one of my neighbours, like not long after I got discharged from hospital, and he was even like, look, he kind of just told me, like, think about what you're doing in a sense, because I've seen your mum for the past 5 days or however long you've been in hospital, like walking up and down these streets, and that's not the same woman that everyone knows. And like for someone to tell me that and for me to kind of know that in myself, I'm like, nah, I couldn't go back to that lifestyle in a sense because of what it'd do to her and how I'd feel in myself in a sense, knowing that how I'm making her feel.
But when you look at it another way, if it was the worst end of the stick, let's just say you did
bro.
unfortunately die, your mum would have had to walk past there every single day to go to work.
Exactly, bro. And the maddest thing about it is when this situation was going on and I was in hospital, people was actually saying that I was dead, bro. So it's like, people are actually saying that I'm dead before I'm even dead, bro. So it's like, wow, like, it's just crazy, man.
And I'm guessing the rehabilitation is, I mean, because we have loads of conversations, and the mindset that you have is very positive. Like we have conversations where it's like, don't let me use my left hand no more. You know, so we purposely do things where it is with your right hand. Okay, so life-changing moment. Definitely.
I think for me, definitely I think that instant there was a life-changing moment at that time. I didn't realize at that time, if that made sense. Because like for me, alright, I'd been stabbed. Like when I'd been stabbed, I didn't realize how bad I'd been stabbed, if that makes sense. So like when I was in hospital and people are speaking to me about it, he's saying you're very lucky and this and that, like it didn't kind of register to me how lucky I actually was until I start hearing about little things about what other people have gone through and realizing like how quick and how short life actually is. So then actually, like I spoke about when I went to prison again in March 2020. So for me, that was somewhat, it was a blessing and a curse. It was cursed because who wants to go to prison? I don't want to be back in this situation. I want to be in prison. But that independence that I had before I'd been stabbed, that was totally stripped away from me. Like I was literally, within that time of being discharged from hospital to going to prison, I was bedbound, in and out of hospital for operations, constantly back and forth, struggling with my mental health, struggling with depression, wanting to just isolate myself, easily agitated, easily annoyed, like any little thing, and I'd want to just be on my own. Like that's the mindset it put me in. Whereas in prison, it kind of helped me to reestablish that that somewhat independent side of myself, because like you just spoke on there, how there's certain tasks that we do where I make sure I don't use my left hand, I use my right hand. Whereas prison was the trigger for me to start actually learning to write with my left hand again, because again, no one's going to do anything for you in there. So I had to reestablish myself. So I had to build on myself while I was in there. And I feel like, as bad as it sounds, because I was somewhat out of mind, it helped me build on myself. So I was in a position to, when I got out, I'm thinking, all right, I'm a bit more stronger in myself, in a sense. Like I feel like I've got that self-belief back. I'm kind of regaining my confidence. I know who I am again, in a sense. So that kind of gave me that building block from when I was in prison to then when I got out. It was like, all right, how can I use this in a somewhat positive light?
Okay. So how do you use that in a positive light? Tell us how that journey begins.
Essentially, when I got out of prison, so I was released in 2021, and I got out. I was on tag when I first got out, and essentially, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. My first instinctive thought or my first instinctive go-to
Old
was,
ways.
yeah, going back to the hustle, going back to what I know best or the only thing I know in a sense. Whereas then there was that sense of like, as I'm getting up, I'm going out, I'm seeing my mum, I'm seeing my family members around me, I'm realizing like me going out this door every day again, because before obviously I got stabbed, I wasn't at home, bro. I was literally outside or outdoors 24/7. I'd come in late at night. I'd go out early in the morning because my mum would work. It'd be rare for me to see my mum on a day-to-day
Or
basis, if
you'd
that
cross
makes sense.
paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be rare. So then when I got out and I'm going back to them same sort of habits and same sort of routes, I'm noticing little things. I'm noticing how my mum's not the same. She's not as bubbly as she usually is. She's kind of looking at me in a certain way, and I'm like, whoa, how I'm making you feel, I can't live with that feeling, bro. Like the money that we're making, it's not worth that feeling. It's not worth people, or not worth people that I care about and I genuinely love, having them feel that way about me, or not know if I'm coming back in or not. So my partner that I was with at the time, when I got out, she was into, she used to work in a care home. So I'd asked any of her colleagues, is there any way that I could get into kind of youth work? Because youth work was something that I kind of thought in myself that I wanted to do. I kind of had the idea when I was in prison that, you know what, I want to get into youth work. I want to kind of help young people. Like that's something I want to do. That's something I'd be passionate about. Whereas then when I'm having conversations with certain people, especially in prison or even outside of prison, it's like, well, for one, you've got a criminal record. How are you going to work with kids, especially within school? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that when you've got all these somewhat barriers that are against you? And that kind of inflicted self-doubt on me. So when I was having conversations, obviously, with my ex-partner, she kind of pointed me in the direction of someone that does the work in Hercules. And even when I inquired through him, he turned around and said to me, "Well, we don't work with people of a lived experience." So I'm thinking, well, I've had conversations with personnel telling them what I want to do, and now I'm here with a person that does the work. You're telling me I can't do it because of my lived experience, because of my criminal record. I'm thinking, well, where do I go from here? Then he was able to point me in the direction of another organisation that do obviously offer work of personnel with a lived experience, and that is where I began volunteering and came into contact with yourself.
Yeah, he did. And we had a 5-minute conversation, I think. I remember. I walked in a room, said to you, what do you want to do? You said, and I was like, right, okay.
Literally what you gave me, that platform in a sense, and literally from there it was, I volunteered from, I think it was the June up until the September when a job opportunity came about. I applied for the job role, and again, it meant I was now a member, obviously, under your team. And that's where the journey started in a sense.
Then you became a team leader.
Yeah, of course. And then from there it was a team lead. I think that was about 18 months or so after being in that job role. But then there was always that, as I've already spoke about, I've had 2 previous jobs in the past. There was always that somewhat something in me that was like, I don't like working for people, bro. I don't like taking orders, or I don't like being asked and told what to do and when to do it. In a sense, I like to have free range over not just what I'm doing, but how I somewhat conduct myself and how I do things.
Yeah.
So this is where obviously the first thought of On the Verge came about, and it was actually a conversation with someone that I'd met while working under this other organisation, and we was kind of just having this conversation, and she kind of directed me in the path of saying, well, you know, businesses, they don't cost so much to register and X, Y, and Z, and this is where we kind of started looking into the logistics, and it worked out that this is where obviously On the Verge came into the picture, and it was like, all right, this is what I want to do, and this is something I'm building on, but at the same time, while still working for this organisation, I'm not fully ready to kind of go with On the Verge yet. It was more something I was always building in the background, while still working and building my expertise, building my knowledge in obviously where we're at now, the criteria we're in now.
Okay. So tell us about On the Verge. What is On the Verge?
Whoa,
To
me,
Yeah.
To me, On the Verge is, I wouldn't say a platform, but it's something that at the moment I see it as a thing that it creates opportunities for people to delve into the avenue of somewhat youth work, because even though we offer a lot of support on, say, the lived experience aspect, so we cover knife crime, we cover county lines, we cover gangs, we cover joint enterprise, cover things such as healthy relationships, conflict resolutions, like all these things are good, and the topics that we topics that we cover are good, but it's all information based. Whereas for a young person, they're going to take in the information, yes, but whether it's going to be they're going to use it now or they're going to use it in 5 years, they're going to use it in 10 years, it's always about having that information stored. But for a lot of young people as well, it's about finding them something that they enjoy doing and creating opportunities for them to go on and do better things. We live in a world now where generationally you can be anything, bro. You can be a TikToker, you can be a YouTuber, you can be a content creator. There's loads of different things that you can do in this day and age. So to choose the path that a person like myself chose at that early age, it's bottom of the barrel in a sense. So what we're trying to do is I'm trying to open young people's eyes to believing in themselves and being their full potential in themselves. So I think that's the platform for On the Verge. As a lot of people will know, I've seen On the Verge in terms of the logo. This is where On the Verge came from, because it's that fine balance between things. It's fine balance between choices and decisions, because inevitably, like it says on the logo, it's a weighing scales, and one decision is either going to bring you down or it's going to pull you up. It's about finding that true balance where you're confident in both angles and you're equally level on both sides, to where you're happy and content with not just personal life but also business as well. So a lot of the time, that's the stem for On the Verge.
No, I often get asked this question. I've been asked it quite a few times. But what is your long-term view
for On the Verge?
Yeah.
But I think our visions align together in a sense, because I feel like it's one of them, like I've heard you say in a sense, it's like in the future, you want On the Verge to be somewhat a legacy in a sense. Like it's not something that I just want individually to be named by. Like I just want people to get On the Verge and say, oh yeah, that was Marcus, that was Carl. On the Verge should be On the Verge, but the impact you have from that person out On the Verge should be what you take forward, not the personnel. Because a lot of the work we've done before, again, it's like people remember us as people because of our lived experience, because of our stories, because we've done what we've done for young people, but they don't often remember the organisation. Whereas for us, it's like, I want to leave that long-lasting impact, whereas even if I'm not here in 10, 15 years, you're not here in 10, 15 years, On the Verge is still here, bro. And On the Verge is still making impacts in other people's lives. So I think it's just longevity. And again, I feel like because of certain lives that we lived prior, there was no longevity in that. Whereas in this now, there's something that even though you're building brick by brick, brick by brick, it's going to get to a point where it lives on even if we're not.
And you know, in my mind there, I was just thinking, imagine there's going to be somebody who's going to watch this video, heard of On the Verge, and actually eventually work for On the Verge, and only would have found out about it through watching it.
But again, I feel like that's a good thing for us as well, because we're not just in one route. Like we work in education, yes, we want to help a lot of young people, but we are also in a position where if somebody has somewhat a blueprint for something that they want to do, and they have a clear idea and they have something they want to make work, it's like, all right, well, what can we do to help you make that work in a sense? We're not going to say, oh, well, it's not in education, it's not working with young people, we can't help you on there. If we see that you've got a clear idea and you've got a clear mission in what you want to do, we'll provide that backing to make sure that you have the foundation in order to go and do that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny you say that, because because you're often talking about education and school, and I forgot that we've actually done that with people where somebody's had an idea, they don't have a platform, but they have this idea, and we go, okay. And again, me and you we're very different in our approach to things. However, we're very similar in the thought process, if that makes sense. So mine is like, there's many times where you'll go, listen, you need to speak to Carl on this, because most of the time, and a lot of people won't realize, is for me to listen to you talk, I don't necessarily have to look at you. Like, I just want to listen. Just give me that.
Create the picture in my head.
Because then what I'll do is I'll create the picture in my own mind of how that will look. And that's when I come up with questions. Because I have often, and I've said it many a time, I work backwards. So I'll often go to the extreme and then go, right, okay, so if this happens here, what would I do? Okay, what if this happened here, what would I do? And I work backwards. So then when I'm going forward, I've already got the answers already.
You're covered in all aspects.
So what I'm going to say is a couple more questions. I And I'm going to throw you with this one.
Go on.
Who was your hero growing up? I knew I'd throw you.
I don't know, bro. I don't know if I had a hero. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think there was somebody that I would look to and say, all right, I want to aspire to be like you. You're someone that I look up to. Like, don't get me wrong. I think for every somewhat male aspect, you have that. You had the father figure is definitely key. And for me, I had that up until, again, like I said, even though I moved out the family home when you're 8, year 9, I still had that till I was a good 16, 17. And that's when my kind of relationship with my dad somewhat distanced in a sense. Like, even to the point where my first time I went to prison on my dad's actual birthday. So I went to prison on his birthday, but he didn't actually know I was in prison. He wrote me a letter one time, and that's when I kind of expressed to him, like, I felt like he'd let me down in a sense. Like, I didn't feel like he was a part of my life as he somewhat should have been during that particular time in my life. Whereas then he kind of ripped back to me. It was like, well, in hindsight, I give you kind of the platform to kind of become your own man. And at the time, I didn't really understand it. But then I did understand it, because if he'd have baby coddled me throughout my whole life, throughout that whole period in my time, I might not have been or I might have not gone down certain paths or being the kind of person I wanted to be. Where, again, I wouldn't defend him kind of being so distant. I'd still rather him be a bit closer, but at the same time, I kind of understood what he was saying at the same time.
Well, I've started asking that question. I asked the question because most people aspire to, because they look at the people within their own community, and most people that get into illegal things is because the people that are role models within their area are doing illegal things. So often people look up to those people, and they come.
Again, I don't know if that was. I won't say that was something that I looked up to, again, because I feel like my somewhat social circle, when it did become somewhat criminal activity side of things, we was all the same age group. So it's not like there was somebody that was pinnacle at the top and at the bottom. We was all somewhat within the same wavelength, within the same scale. So it's like, I wouldn't necessarily had a hero, but that drive, I say my more thing for me was that drive for money. I feel like because I came from a somewhat, say, council estate, or a 1 of 5 siblings, like, money was always it was always an obstacle in a sense. Like, it was always trying to get more
You're
money.
You're chasing more, right?
Money,
Because you see the things, and your friends that come from a single parent, but only have one child. They're the only child, or there's only 2 of them. And then your circumstances of coming from a family of 5.
And you always just look. It's like you're in competition with everyone else. You're always looking and trying to compete with other people. Whereas it's like, you don't know what everyone else's circumstances are. You don't know what everyone else is going on. Don't be just in a position to want to be like them because you see that they've got nice things. Like,
but I know you're a deep thinker.
Background might not be all that.
I know you're a deep thinker. And so, who would you say, if you're now in your early years, do you have an inspiration? Is it inspiration or aspiration?
As in what I want to achieve?
Yeah, and is there somebody that you look at, or you go, because we're doing positive now, aren't we? Is there somebody that you do see? I mean, you don't have to name, but
Well, I feel like I watch a lot of things, and I view a lot of people, or I see a lot of things. I see a lot of, like, podcasts. I listen to a lot of things people say. Even in terms of the podcasts you've done with certain people, bro, I listen to these podcasts and I watch them, and I probably take little bits from each podcast, because at the end of the day, I feel like there's always something that resonates with somebody. And I feel like even in myself, like, a lot of things might not be relevant to everyone, but I feel like there'll be little glimpses in what I've said today that will be relevant to some people. And I feel like even in terms of everyday conversations, I pick up little things from something somebody says, and there's always things that just stick with me. So I won't say there's any form of, like, somewhat aspirations of where I want to be, but I believe that there's a greater sense of purpose, and I'm destined for greater things, if that makes sense.
No, listen, makes perfect sense. But so obviously the next one, you'll know what they are anyway. So we're gonna go back in time. So if you could change anything, what would it be, and why?
I would, plain and simple, bro. I feel like if I changed anything in my life, it'd take me away from where I am now. Like, everything I've picked up over life has been because I've meant to pick it up. Like, even to where I am now, I'm not the completed article. even where On the Verge is now, it's not the completed article, but it's constantly evolving, it's constantly growing, it's constantly becoming a better person, it's constantly making positive changes. And I think my mindset now is built up off what I've been through in the past, where I can think so positively, like I'll take something, or something will go wrong in my life, or something, in instance, my car will need doing, something will go wrong with my car. And before I'd probably beat myself up thinking, this car, it's going to cost me this much, and it's going to hinder me. Whereas now I look at it like, well, that needed to break. That was meant to break in a sense, because if that didn't break, something else might have gone wrong in totally entirely. Or if I'm delayed by 5 minutes, I was meant to have that 5 minute delay, because if I didn't have that 5 minute delay, who knows what could have happened in that 5 minutes.
First of all, I'm not letting you off with that one, because that's no excuse to be late for anything.
No, all right.
Because that's where you're going. He's always late.
I'm not always late. Come on, when I need to be on time, I'm organised. But again, bro, my anxiety plays up from time to time, so I have to reschedule things.
Granted. No, 100%. And you know what it is what I will say is I've seen firsthand.
Yeah.
And I think because of my knowledge of you, it's easier for me to be able to deal with it and not brush it aside, but understand it.
And you, like I say, you've worked with me for that long. You understand how I try to be as organised as I can when it comes to things. So I'm not overplaying things in my head. So I'm not. It's like something happens short notice and like, right, you need to go here. I'm like, whoa. Like,
yeah. I know that. Okay then. So we covered that. But okay, what about this one then? What advice would you give to your younger self?
I think, in all honesty, I'd tell myself just to keep going. I feel like a lot of things I've been through, especially not even a lot of things, but in particular being stabbed, losing that function in my dominant right arm, a lot of time, don't get me wrong, I felt like giving up. Like when I talk about depression and being literally isolated, beating myself up, like that, some dark times, bro, I'm not even going to lie to you, but the constant thought of not giving up to then seeing where I am now 3, 4 years, 5 years down the line, it's like, wow, like imagine if you didn't keep pushing, imagine if you just didn't keep pursuing what you actually genuinely believed. Even to now On the Verge, bro, like where On the Verge is now to where it was 18 months ago, 2 years ago, bro, it's like, if I'd have not persisted or not continued to go through things that I've gone through, and even though don't get me wrong, there's been hard times, there's been happy times, it's like, everything's going in the right direction. Everything's creating a path that's a lot clearer to me. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, because on many a time we'd had conversation where we was having conversations and it'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning on Teams meetings, and it'd be, I think we're ready, and I'd be going, nah, no, and you going, yeah, but we've got this, we're ready, we can launch, and I'd be going, no, because there's still this, and this. And I don't want it to be a situation where somebody comes at any stage and goes, but have you got that? And we go, no, but we can get it. Well.
Yeah, it's always in the making, isn't it?
It's always in the making.
Rather have it.
And I think the journey's long.
Yeah,
the journey is long.
For me, definitely, I feel like for me, it just be keep going, persist in everything. Like, everything becomes clearer as time goes on.
Okay. So, you will know how the current climate is. We're working constantly with kids, although you've had 6 weeks off. But anyway, let's go with advice that you would give to the younger generation now.
First and foremost, I'd say advice is obviously always going to differ depending on the circumstance, depending on the situations. But what I would always encourage every somewhat young person to do is always try to learn something new every day, because inevitably you don't know when you might need it. Like we've already spoke on, the information we give a lot of young people, whether it's young people, parents, professionals, you never know when that information may become relevant. So always try to store something new every day that maybe 5-10 years down the line becomes a lot more clearer and you might have to use it. That's definitely a key piece of information I give. But I also tell them just be yourself in a sense, because a lot of the time, especially a lot of young people we work with, they're influenced by social media. There's this glamorization factor that comes into things, and people believe that you have to look or act a certain way in order to fit into society nowadays. Whereas again, when you go through, say, some of your hardest times, some of your darkest moments, you will inevitably go through them situations on your own. It doesn't matter who you're speaking with on these social sites, who your friendship circle is. Inevitably, when them tough times come, them tough times are going to be faced by yourself. So make sure you are confident in who you are, and it will help you get through that situation, get through that current climate.
And I agree. Definitely agree. Okay. So we get to the one.
See, I don't know. See, now this is where you're gonna flip the script and say, I have my chance to ask you a question, but now I'm stuck. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Because what question have I got to ask? I feel like I peck your head with questions more or less 99% of the days. So it's like...
Trust me, he does. He constantly pecks my head. Although we've had a break from each other for 5 days.
That means I'm loading up with questions.
Well, so...
But I don't know about questions that I can ask on this platform. All right.
You can ask any question.
See, for me, I feel like a lot of the questions I would necessarily ask, I feel like they've already been covered during previous podcasts. I feel like the question I would want to ask for me personally is that, again, I started On the Verge in 2022 and it was initially registered as a limited company. Over time, that's obviously changed now to a CIC over the past somewhat 18 months, 2 years. My question to you is, again, because a lot of the work that I've done to On the Verge was essentially, don't get me wrong, I've had assistance, I've had help, especially with the personnel that helped me first register On the Verge. They put in a good input towards making me or helping me understand certain criteria. But what I would ask to you is, what gave you the confidence or somewhat belief in me to come on board to On the Verge and saying that this was somewhat the right, not necessarily the right fit for you, as well as, I know we work well together, but what made this On the Verge the right fit for you in a sense?
Okay. There's quite a few bits to it, if I'm honest with you. And again, because I don't know the question you're going to ask, then I'm thinking off the top of it. The last thing I want to do is miss anything out. But I think because of the relationship that we had at our previous work, and a lot of people won't understand is every time I stepped up, then you stepped up, if it makes sense. So originally I was a team leader, and then you was facilitator. However, what people didn't realize is I was always training you as a team leader. So everything you did at the same level as me. It's just that I had the title and you didn't. So then when I became a service manager, when it came to being a team, you jumped up to being a team leader because you already, but then we started the same process again. I was teaching you things as a service manager. And I think for me, it wasn't about telling you what to do, because I know you said you don't like taking orders. So it was never that. But it was always a thing of, and again, you'll remember, I remember saying to you, look, don't ever question when I'm saying something to you, because it's for your benefit. And I would say, look, just go with this. I remember your first interview. It was for radio, wasn't it? If I'm right. Yeah,
BBC.
Yeah, it was BBC Radio, and I remember because I'd had the training, so I was doing the training with you, and I remember being stood behind the reporter, and then I was doing hand signals. Like we had hand signals where we'd go, because it's where they try to draw you out sometimes. And then when you came with the On the Verge, I mean, one was you go off the top of the head and you go, listen, it's 50-50. And then also I go, well, I look at it, the things that have been said about early intervention and it being primary, not primary focus, but also stepping into the primary element of it, focusing on early intervention and prevention. It just made sense. And sometimes you just get that feeling, don't you, where you go, it fits and it just makes sense. And then I go, okay, where can we go now? We can throw all our ideas in, all these ideas that you got to remember I was giving my previous organisation that was not doing them. So then we had the opportunity to run with those ideas, polish them up, and go, right, okay, we'll do them.
No, and again, for me, I think it was a no-brainer to have you come on board in a sense, anyway, because like I said, that logistics of that understanding that I'd been doing, or that work that I'd somewhat started on the verge, but I was still working, getting my experience, getting that knowledge, it all fundamentally came through you in the first place anyway. So it was like, essentially for me, it was a no-brainer, because again, if it wasn't that, we'd have had to probably go toe-to-toe at the point, and you've got a lot more experience, a lot more knowledge than me, so...
Do you know what it is?
It took us longer on the verge to be able to get to this point that we're at now, so...
Yeah, I think and what people don't realise is because we had our own... Within our organisation, we had our own team. We wasn't separate from the organisation, but we had a greater push. I had a greater push of pushing and pushing within the education. So it definitely would have been a struggle, but we don't have to worry about that now.
No, of course not. Again, On the Verge, destined for greater things, and again, it will live on past
Beyond
me,
us.
past you. Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
Well, Marcus, thank you for coming on.
Not a problem. Like I said, I feel like my one's probably overdue, especially in the role that I play at the moment. So yeah, definitely, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, first of many.